All right, so I still haven't figured out what I want to work on tonight, but maybe that'll be good and fun, or maybe not. There's a couple of things I for sure want to do eventually, and one of them is to hook up WordPress behind my main business site. I did the same thing with my personal website. Let me see here. I'm going to switch to live. So this is my business site, and my personal site has a couple of articles. And these articles are all actually hosted on WordPress, though you wouldn't actually know it from looking at it. I get the feeling this is probably pretty straight ahead headless WordPress stuff, but I really enjoyed trying to figure out how to make this work. I think was it Eric Barnes? Laravel. Yeah. Yeah, so I used this sort of as a inspiration or template for doing this. This article talked a little bit about a couple of different projects. WP Eloquent, which is more or less letting you talk directly to a WordPress database. That's not what I wanted to do. I did not actually want to have WordPress running on the same server. Not the smallest of reasons, but these two sites are actually hosted on Laravel Vapor. Vapor is a serverless host for Laravel ecosystem. So I didn't want to figure out how to get Laravel running on here, and I also really didn't want anybody to know how to actually get here from, or to actually be able to get to my WordPress login screen. Just didn't really seem like there was any real good reason for that. So looking at this, something like WP Eloquent wasn't necessarily super useful for me. WordPress to Laravel syncs the database, but this is working just with the WordPress.com WordPress ecosystem. There's WordPress.com, which is the commercial system. Supernova says, what shame. Which shame is that? Is that using WordPress? Is that using Laravel? Is that using Vapor? Unclear. I'm sure you'll share, though. So yeah, WordPress.com is the commercial offering. So I didn't want to pay to have one site up on, well, okay, of course that's going to happen, right? Didn't want to pay to host a WordPress.com site and not actually use the hosting, and not actually use it as the front end. So I didn't really like that idea all that much. So let's see, what are our other options here? Laravel WP API. This works with the WordPress JSON REST API. I don't remember why. I don't remember why I didn't use this application or use this library unless it was archived by the owner. Okay, so that's probably why I decided not to use this. I don't know why they did this, other than if this may have been, all right. So the WP REST API has been merged into WordPress core. So this was an older project that gave WordPress the ability to have an API. And then when that made it into core, I don't know if they actually used this code as a base or not, but then they decided not to use this. So that made sense. So that's why I didn't use this. And then there was an interesting one called Corcel that uses Eloquent models to manage retrieving the content from your WordPress database. Seems very similar to WP Eloquent. But this one seems a little more modern, or marketed better, perhaps. just from a high-level, superficial look. It's got a logo, yay! You know a project's awesome when it has its own logo. Let's see, what is Supernova saying? You don't want anyone to... Oh, I didn't want anyone to know. Yeah. So, gotta own it, different tools for different jobs. So, true. So, for my purposes, different tools. I didn't want to have to rebuild a backend similar to WordPress's editor, which is actually a lie. I really wanted to build my own CMS, but it was taking way too long. So I decided what I really needed to do was just use another tool. But the problem was that I already had an application, I already had a website. I wanted to build things off of Laravel. So I was looking for solutions to try and do the best of both worlds. And so I came up with the headless WordPress idea. So yeah, Courcell is a collection of PHP classes built on Eloquent, provides a fluent interface to connect to the WordPress database. So this is very similar to WP Eloquent. I don't know how much they actually have in common, but on the surface they're very similar. So this is actually kind of nice because in theory, this looks like it would be pretty trivial to have point to a shared database somewhere that's running WordPress over the network so that I wouldn't have to use, or I wouldn't have to necessarily have WordPress running on the same host. Same would probably have been true here. Let's see. No, it doesn't look like this does it out of the box, actually. Because it's actually a feature that it doesn't create any extra MySQL connections. So, totally a feature if your database is in the same, or if your WordPress site is in the same database as your Laravel application, makes sense. But this is kind of a nice feature as well to be able to say, hey, I'm actually connected to a completely different database for the WordPress stuff. So for the rest of this article, Eric Barnes was talking about other ways to do it. Development trait. Oh, actually, I thought there was more to this than that. Laravel WP API. Actually, it was this article. Nope. Wow. Okay. Well, I'm not going to spend too much time on this. I'll use. Okay, here we go. So this is actually closer to, I think this was the article that I was using. So here we're talking about using the proper WP REST API, which is built into WordPress now. And he talked about creating just a simple little class, which is totally fine. And he's using file get contents. I ended up using Guzzle or something along those lines, but not using like a full-featured client, just building a little API client just to sort of get the job done. Sync posts. So the idea there was to get the post by a post ID. So if you decide that you want to put information in, make sure it has an ID, create a post with that information. So that would be this local, would be creating a new instance locally of a post based on the information that came in from WordPress, and then updating the post if it was actually already there already, and some other date math to make sure that if you don't update something that's already current. Creating the post was just setting all of the fields. So this was a good template for me to look at the fields that were going to be coming across from the API. Featured image, this was actually extracting some information out of the data to find the featured image that was there and making sure that the source URL was returned. Well, not every post is actually going to have a featured image, so this was sort of doing a little bit of stuff there. Likewise, categories, it was looking for taxonomy and category, and then finding which ones they were, and then creating the category locally if it didn't exist already. So this would, category in this case was actually probably either going to be a taxonomy. I guess it was always going to be a category. So I don't. Here were the tags. So here were post tags as the other taxonomy. So if there were more than one, or if there were any tags at all, then it wanted to use set tags. So it was using some eloquent specific stuff to synchronize these tags using a specific package from Cartalist. And then scheduling it so that it runs all of the time. And yeah, so this was a very, very simple framework for what I ended up building. It sort of gave me the best, it gave me a really good running start on what I needed to build. I'm going to look at actual Beau Simensen website. The bits here are WordPress. Actually, hold on, I want to double check to make sure there shouldn't be credentials here, but you know, about the time you say that, there are. There's a WordPress config file that has the URL that is supposed to represent the URL where the actual WordPress site is installed. REST API client ID and REST API client secret. I decided I wanted to implement a couple of different OAuth type things to secure the API. So this gives us the ability to have a client ID and a client secret configured here. Inside app, we've got a WordPress directory that has the WordPress API class. This is very similar to the stuff that was in Eric Barnes' article. I'm going to actually look at the models real quick first. So we've got models for WordPress author and WordPress post. So model has related author, which is the other class that we opened up. It does have post tags, and we, rather than using the Cartalist package that Eric was using, I decided to use the Spotty tags package. So post tags, tags with type post type, and categories is tags with type category. So tags works by itself, but you can actually go with tags with type as well. The URL, if the post has a slug, it generates a route to the blog post with the slug. So that's for local purposes. This is for building the URL to this post locally using the slug that was generated and sent from WordPress. Otherwise, if there is no slug yet, it's possible that the post exists before it gets a slug. And so in those cases, it's going to be a preview blog post. And so it generates a route. So if there's a slug, it generates a route to blog post. Otherwise, it generates a preview blog post with the ID of the post. Edit URL. This is generating a URL to go back to the actual WordPress site. So it uses the config WordPress URL and the WordPress post ID to generate a link to go back to it. And then there's a couple of scopes. So there's published and there is newest first. For the author doesn't really have anything here except that it does have a fairly substantial avatar structure. So that's what goes there. And then let's take a look at the migrations. Got the WordPress posts and tags table. So WordPress posts is very similar to the structure that Eric has in his article. So we have blog, which is actually the ID for a specific WordPress site. The idea being that it would potentially be possible to have the same blog or the same website connected to multiple blogs, which would involve having multiple things within the config. So if I'm going to keep doing that, I need to clean this up a bit. So if I'm working on this, that's probably what I'm going to do. Right now, WordPress just looks like a single WordPress instance capable, but I think how I would change this would probably be closer to services, maybe database, and how you can have like named connections. So we probably have Beau Simensen, and then inside that, I would have the 3 values that could potentially be set. That way you could have multiple different WordPress connections added. So that's what the blog is, and then there's a couple of places where I need to be very explicit that this is for the actual WordPress post ID as opposed to the WordPress post ID. So we got slug, title, content. Almost everything is nullable except for WordPress post ID, because this is sort of an additional identifier. One thing that I did do was make the WordPress post ID unique against the blog. So this can't be an ID on its own, or a unique identifier, because multiple blogs could have the same post number, say 53. So that wouldn't work very well. So we need to make sure that it's unique across individual blogs. There is the relationship for the author, which is defined here. And then I am just keeping some raw information. So for JSON, we're keeping the featured media as just a big blob of data. And likewise, we have raw from WordPress. So this is going to be the whole payload that represents the post, so that we can do additional work on it after the fact if we want to. So pulling out most of the stuff that we're going to be using, but we can use this raw from WordPress to do some information later, and potentially even up certain things. So let's say we decide we need to have a different field added here that we need to get out of the raw WordPress post payload. We wouldn't be able to do that very well because we wouldn't have that data stored. So we would have to do a resync of every single post, which isn't probably what we want to do. So what this allows us to do is store the raw information that we get from the post, or that we get from WordPress, so that after the fact, later, we could actually probably do something without having to completely resync everything from WordPress, which would be nice. The work for actually doing the synchronization, that happened. Get local post. So the API is a little iffy. Right now it does have a cache. It has the URL, and then it has the REST information that we need. The problem with this is that it's very tied to one specific instance of a connection. So in order to use something where we're going to support multiple blogs per site, we'd have to find a way to maybe have like a factory or something that you can get a WordPress API by name, and then it could actually get the information out like that. So that might be what we have to do there. Everything on this is assuming there's going to be an OAuth URL. So I don't know if I'd ever want to support anything else at this point, but definitely I want to continue to do that. There's a couple of places where we need to generate a URL. So we have like generate list posts and then generate retrieve post. So if we're looking at a specific post versus listing them, that's where those come from. Getting local posts, this is something that probably doesn't belong here, but since I feel like it's called here though, get local post. No, it's not. This was a convenient way to say I already have the URL. So if I want to make sure and safely get the a specific blog post with the thing that already knows which URL we're actually, or which blog URL we're actually using, I put this here for now, but that's probably not the best place to put it. Embeds. Embeds were a way to make sure that the information that we get from the WordPress API actually contains information that we want or need, so that we don't have to go back and get it by an additional query, especially if we're getting like a list of things. We don't want to have to do one query for the list and then one query for each thing that we're trying to get from the list for each post that we retrieved. What else we got? Get all posts. This was getting all of them instead of a specific one. This was the default statuses for getting everything. So we want to get anything that's published, future, draft, pending, or private. I don't remember what the other states were, but there were a few that we didn't actually want to get. Hold on here. I'm going to... All right. Yeah, so I don't remember what the other states were, but there were definitely some states of things that I didn't actually want to get. And then we did need to be able to support the ability to do some different query things. So we can do some additional embeds plus the ones that we actually sent in. Raw posts. And then we want to process a raw post that gets the post instance. So I extracted this call out because I think this one maybe was used multiple times. And this was actually pretty close to what Eric Barnes was doing as well. Yeah, so get post and get all posts are both calling process raw post, since it's the same sort of information. So this is creating a new instance of an array that represents the post, and there's one blocker here that, or not a blocker, but a kind of a guard statement that the status, if it happens to be auto draft, then we're not going to do anything. So that was one of the other statuses that was possible, I guess. Couldn't remember what it was called, but this is anytime you open, I don't know what the exact criteria is, but when you open the WordPress editor to create a new post, before you've actually saved even a draft the first time, it creates an auto draft. So that was a little weird, and so I just decided to block those cases. This fills up the posts. This gets the featured media from embedded WP featured media. So this is pretty similar to what Eric had done. Resolve term collection. So this was actually getting the terms that were set. Resolving the author was looking to see what the author information was passed in, trying to get that author if it exists, and then creating it if it does not. And then getting WordPress author. Actually, no, I'm sorry. This is just getting the raw data that represents the author, and then we ask for the WordPress author for this blog, and if it's there, great. If not, we create a new one, and then we fill the WordPress author. So this will either update the existing one or just fill out the first one with the information we got from the API. And then we save the author. We're able to then save the author ID, which is the actual relationship, and then we can look for the post, the WordPress post in the DB. If that post is there, we use it. Otherwise, we create a new one, fill it, save it. So this is very similar to what we were already doing up here with the WordPress author. And then the last thing to do is to look through the collection to find what type. So this would probably be the taxonomy. So I think it's either category or post tags. And then there's a collection for them. So tags to sync, tag, finder, create, the term with the type. So this sort of inverts what you would maybe normally do and say, we're going to find a tag named blue. That's the default way to call it, but then since we're doing types, we have to give the type as well. So is blue a category or is blue a tag? We need to make sure that that's there. And then the other function on it is sync tags with type. So this is actually called on the post. So if a post already existed that had a different set of tags that were either category or post tags, this would make sure that it's actually synced correctly again to have the new values only. Make authentication request. But I think the big things that I'd want to try to make a little bit nicer here would be making sure that I better support this concept of a blog. Also trying to make sure that there's a nicer way to get this WordPress API instance, because this I think we probably need to do like WordPress API client, and then WordPress API can maybe be a factory that returns instances of WordPress API. The other thing that I wanted to take a look at was possibly also supporting pages. Right now it's only doing posts, but I think pages and posts are very similar in WordPress to the point where I think we can probably adapt this code pretty easily. I just don't know how, I don't know if they're similar enough that they can be the same class without me getting really upset. So that's something I'm going to take a look at too. So let me load Typora. So let's do port. Let's see, WordPress client. Pages. This is sort of the infrastructure that actually works with everything. The other piece would be the listeners. So the things that actually respond to events on WordPress. So rather than having to manually click a button or have something pull the website every once in a while, I wanted to have the actual application, or the WordPress application, notify when things were happening. So if we look at the controllers, webhooks, blog, the two that I'm paying attention to are post changed and post deleted. And so dispatch, post ID, and let's see, batch post ID. So in both of these cases, it's delete post and change post. So I'm using a WordPress webhook plugin to specify to send webhooks when certain things happen. So the only two that I've registered so far is post changed. Let's see what these do. We're going to look in the jobs. Delete post. I'm sort of doing a soft delete sort of deal here. So if a post gets deleted, I'm not actually going to delete it in my website. I'm just going to mark it as status deleted. Likewise, for change post, we do WordPress API get post. So we're not even doing anything with the output here. We're just going to try and get the information. So it's also, webhooks have two sort of general flavors. There's skinny pings and fat pings, which I don't know if skinny ping's actually the right terminology, and it's weird wording anyway. But the idea would be that the only information that we are getting as a part of the payload that it's of any use to us is the ID. So we're not going to listen to anything else. Anytime we're told that the post has changed, we go actually query the data. We go query the API and fill it out. So this works both in the case of the post already existing locally and also not existing at all. So this is sort of the final part of it, that we have a ability. Cesar Kiklik is asking which language I'm working with. Right now, it's only PHP. If you mean in general, I do actually work in other languages as well, but this is the one that I'm working on. You can call me Caesar. Nice. Hello, Caesar. Nice to meet you. So yeah, are you asking if I program only PHP, or am I doing only PHP tonight? Okay, so let's go ahead and fire up the editor. And I think Caesar's a front-end developer and needs some advice. Possible I can help you if you want to let me know what you need help with. I can see if I can do something. All right, so with the dfly dev website up and running now, go ahead and start out by actually, I'm going to look up WordPress schema. I guess it's on the codex. So Caesar's talking about finding work as a new front-end programmer. He's been working for almost 2 years with HTML, CSS, JavaScript, Webpack, Node.js, React, Puppeteer, but that it's hard to find a gig without having actual professional experience. Yeah, I can see how that would be difficult. I guess my question would be, what sort of non-professional things have you worked on? Hey Oliver, thanks for joining. Caesar, what kind of, if you can let me know what kind of things you've been working on, like portfolio pieces, that sort of thing. Oliver is saying that he just finished giving a Tailwind CSS talk for Nashville PHP. I wasn't going to ask why you're still awake, but that seems to make a lot of sense if that's what was going on. I hope that talk went well for you. But Caesar, yeah, if you can let me know, if you have GitHub profile, if you've put stuff on like Gribble or any of the sharing sites like that for like front end stuff, because sometimes that sort of thing can actually make a big impact on people who are doing like job hunting, or not job hunting, but recruiting. So if you don't have a strong stuff like that, strong basic things, made a calculator, creative forms on homepage. Yeah, I think that short of actually working on a real project somewhere, it might be hard to actually show people what your skills are. Like sell a reading app, reading and writing app, yeah. Oliver Davies, silver lining of COVID, everything's going online. That's awesome. I actually have I have my first speaking engagement in quite a while. In 2 weeks, I think. I'm actually going to be doing a version of probably tonight's stream for a local Madison WordPress meetup, showing how I worked with headless WordPress to integrate with Laravel. So this is a kind of a dry run for me, which is kind of nice. Yeah, Caesar, I don't know what to say about that. Working on a portfolio site, but you don't have any design. I guess Oliver Davies sort of just mentioned Tailwind CSS. I don't know if you've looked at Tailwind UI or anything along those lines, but sort of the point behind this was to make it easier for people who are developers who maybe don't have strong design skills to easily spin up something to actually try making something look nice, even though you might not be a developer or a designer. So something like this might be nice. There's tons of template sites out there as well. And yeah, that might be a good place to go. I would say keep it simple if you can. Oliver Davies says there's some free versions too. Free versions of like Tailwind specific things, I'm guessing he means. But the Tailwind's UI definitely is the first class thing provided by the actual Tailwind Labs team. Hey Jeff, thanks for joining us tonight. I don't want to let your intro tonight just slide by, so thanks for joining. I appreciate it. And Caesar, the thing I was mentioning with like Dribble, I think is one that is a place where people go to share front end. Actually, this is more design stuff. What am I thinking? What's the other? Tailwind components is what Oliver Davies just shared. Or no, actually Jeff just shared this. So Tailwind components is another tool that doesn't cost anything. That it looks like there is a premium option, which I hadn't seen before. But yeah, what is it? It's code something. I can't believe my brain. Oh, CodePen. There it is. CodePen is a nice way to start building. Hey, Loops. Thanks for joining tonight. Yeah, Caesar, the CodePen IO site can be interesting for people who are trying to do front-end things. So if you're doing like CSS and JavaScript mostly, or if you're building like your calculator thing that you were talking about, this would be something that you could do, is build a profile like this to share stuff that is good, I guess, would be something that would be important. And then it's easy to share because you can just share the link. It's sort of like a GitHub profile, but for more UI things and like JavaScript, like actual applications. You have the ability to write HTML, CSS, and JavaScript. Oliver just mentioned play.tailwind. This is sort of like a version of CodePen, but mostly for Tailwind CSS. I don't know if they do any JavaScript on this, or if you can do inline JavaScript. But this is a nice, quick way to sort of jump in. Hey, Jean-Luc, we're taking a little break real quick. Caesar asked about finding gigs when you don't have a professional background just yet. Been working on HTML and JavaScript and Webpack and Node and React for 2 years, but can't seem to get a gig. So yeah, Caesar, if you're asking about GitHub versus CodePen, I was throwing CodePen out there as an example. The problem that I personally have, or not personally have, but the problem that I can see with the GitHub profile is like my own. Mine is just not good. There's not a lot here. The problem is that it's mostly forks. So there's nothing really useful on my personal repository. So if I have specific projects that I can link to, that would make sense. Like if I wanted to send someone to specifically, let's say, dflydev fig cookies, like I will send people to specific repositories that show examples of code that I've either worked on, created, or whatever. But this is code, and it can be hard to show what it's actually doing. I would imagine that people working on front-end things, unless you can get it working with something like Vercel, where you can create a demo site really easily, then yeah, you could totally just like fire people over to the demo site. I was just looking at TipTap today, and so like this is like, this website is a demo of the editor, right? So I can go look at this GitHub page for this project, and I don't really know what it does, what it's capable of. So, it's good if I actually go in and start to figure out what they're doing. If I look at, packages and commands, and I want to see the source code, sure, this is going to give me that. But this goes a long way as to showing someone that not only are you building it, but it actually works, because there's a lot of code out there that just doesn't work. Oliver Davies says, getting involved in an open source project, gonna learn a lot. Looks great on his CV or resume. The projects are nearly always looking for contributors. Yeah, that's definitely another thing to do too. So if you have your own projects that you're working on and you're passionate about, great. If you're running out of ideas and aren't really excited about working on your calculator application any more than you already have, finding an open source project to be involved with is awesome. Caesar says, I don't know whether I'm enough to contribute to an open source project or not. There's two things I'd say to that. One, if you aren't sure you're strong enough to be a developer on an open source project, if that's what you mean, then that might be, if that's true, that might be a reason why it's hard to get jobs, right? Like if you're still junior to the point that you aren't able to feel confident submitting to an open source project, it might mean that you have more work to do on the skills. But I don't imagine that's actually true, because open source doesn't have to be big and massive. It can be small, and a lot of these projects, Oliver Davies said most projects have good first issue labels. So I was going to see if this one has that. Feature request. So there are cases where does joined in have that? The joined in guy, joined in VM. I don't know how these work. We do have Hacktoberfest, Help Wanted, no issue activity. So if you look at open source projects, especially on the issues, oftentimes people will try to make it easier for people to contribute. I want to say maybe Composer has those. Yeah, so documentation, good first issue. So if I click good first issue, this is, okay, so Oliver Davies shared a few too. Documentation, relationship between preferred source dist and preferred install config. So people don't often think that something like docs count as open source, but it totally is. Like anything, like if you're contributing to open source, you're contributing to open source. Yeah, Oliver Davies says good first issue is pretty common. Jailoop says you might try to find a mentor or two who works in the industry. That's actually really powerful, because a lot can be said about people who have personal connections. And yeah, if a friend says, hey, I know you need someone junior, I know so-and-so, I've been helping them learn for the last 3 months, that can go a long way. So that is probably a really good way to go. Yeah, Jaloop says it's all who you know. Probably too often that is true. Okay, so I think I want to get back to see if I can roll back to where we were at. So I closed one too many. Here's the WordPress schema, and then Codex. So yeah, I think that Caesar, if you keep at it, that's pretty awesome. I think that finding people on either GitHub or some other social media, to, even if you aren't working with them directly, like seeing how they work, seeing what they do, finding projects that are exciting to you or interesting, reaching out to people that you've interacted with a few times to say, hey, I'd really like to get better at this. Can you help me? Those could all be really good stuff. Okay, so database description, WP posts. So one of the most awesome things about WordPress is the codex and how much information is here. But one of the harder things that I found about the codex, or found about WordPress, is the codex and all of the information here. Because there's a lot of really weird stuff sometimes, and I can't tell which stuff's real, which stuff is still relevant. But like the fact that they have the WordPress ERD, that's pretty awesome. This makes me worried though that this is an old version of it. 2017. Let's see, database diagram. WordPress, yeah, so has it not changed since then? So this is a prime example of what I was just talking about. Awesome, they've got a database diagram. Oh, it's from WordPress 4.4.2. See what the current version is. Let's see. So releases 5.6. So let's do WordPress. Where are the WordPress databases? Oh, this is Delicious Brains. So the tables, posts. All right, so post type. This was the thing that I was curious about, because I wanted to see how different pages are from posts, but it doesn't look like there's anything really in here. So it might just be content type identifier. So I'll have to give that a try. Now let's see here. So Yeah, so Caesar's talking about actually having a really good resource. Somebody they know that are a developer, a senior front end developer, but not wanting or not willing to help on getting a job, and that's kind of a bummer. And I think that the business aspect and the selling aspect of being a developer, especially for me doing like freelance stuff, that stuff's really difficult. And so I guess the only thing I would have to say about that is maybe try to find a mentor or other people who are trying to do the same things you are, and see what kind of things there are. Like look for user groups or things like that. But yeah, and Rajaluf just said, and here you are finding your way. So yeah, totally. Like coming to places like this, trying to find people who are doing stuff that is close to what you're wanting to do. I think that's really awesome. You find what you're looking for somewhere other than your local resources. Oh, it's not a huge inconvenience because Caesar's saying sorry for the inconvenience. No, like I've been wanting to have more people talking on the stream, so I appreciate you coming in and having questions. So yeah, I appreciate it, Caesar, and feel free to stick around and watch and listen and ask questions along the way if you want. So I think what I'm going to do now is pop over to my back end here, because I can give people a better idea of what's the actual backend looks like, because this is using the so this is straight out of Tailwind UI, so I didn't even bother to change the fact that I don't have an image for the first column there. But I can see the status of the posts, and this is where the preview comes in. So like this one here is a preview URL because it never even received a slug. So if you look down at the bottom, you can see it's _preview_blog3. So if I click this, it actually brings in this post, even though it doesn't have a slug. So nobody's going to see this. If you click on articles, it's only going to show the ones that are actually published. But I can also click into it to edit. And this is important because I have no idea what my blog URL was, because I went to great lengths to hide that so much that it's really easy for me to forget where it's actually at. So I want to see if this is all still working, actually. So I'm going to click Edit in a new tab, and it's going to ask me to log in. There we go. And that little thing that was popping up there for a second, that was, I have no idea what that was. I feel like there was a bug somewhere in some other code, and that it was going to be fixed eventually. I don't know if it was Jetpack related or something else, but if anyone saw that, that's what that was about. So let's do and let's actually do, and then let's see if it actually works. So I'm going to save as draft, and in theory we should be able to see this one change when I reload. Yeah, awesome. So it all still works, which, you know, it's never a given when it comes to software. If you leave it running for 6 months and come back to it, and all of a sudden nothing works. So I'm glad this is actually working. I think what I'm going to do is see if I can look at I can update my plugins while we're waiting, and then pack update. Yeah, I have auto update enabled. Oh. All right, so it's going to try and do updates. Or did I miss something? All right, now it's actually going to do the updates. Awesome. Okay, so one of the plugins was for webhooks. So WP webhooks. First step, blah, blah, blah. Was a very weird plugin. So send data on new post deletion. So this is where, these were the options that I had available. So the post new goes to post created, and post update goes to post updated, post deleted, and then trash also goes to deleted. The thing that I'm not sure about is what my routes look like. Oh, actually that's the wrong, that's not the right site, so do I must have done some magic with the routes here. WordPress. Yeah. So actually created post created, updated, but they both go to post changed. Likewise, trash also goes to post changed, because delete was different in my mind, because deleting is actually like taking it out of the loop, and WordPress is actually going to delete it and we're not going to see it again. So these three states, created, updated, and trashed, are all actually just going to be handled by post changed. But on the back end here, I wanted to make sure that if I decide later that post created was going to be different than post update, that I would only have to fix it on the one side. So this is how things actually work, like this. What I'd like to do is see how pages work. So I actually have sample page. Guessing if I change this page. I wonder if this is actually going to create something in my database. Actually not be good. Okay, so it didn't do anything. I don't know if those webhooks, unless there were specific webhooks. So adding or updating posts in WordPress triggers a webhook, and Laravel stores and renders it. Yes, so that is the general workflow. Rather than using one of the other tools that we looked at earlier, which I don't think you were here for. So WordPress Corcel and WP Eloquent are both tools that would let you talk to the WordPress database using Eloquent models. That is really great, provided your WordPress install is on the same environment that as your Laravel application. In my case, both of my sites are hosted on Vapor. I didn't want to have WordPress running on Vapor, and ideally, I don't want anybody to even know this site exists at all, because WordPress is it's not too bad usually if you are keeping it up to date and all of that. But I really don't want to have WordPress exposed to the outside world, just in general purpose. for the general purposes of security and whatnot. So yeah, that's why I decided to mirror the information that is being created and stored in WordPress on my site. There were a couple of other things that I set up as well. One of them was the, let's see, tool settings, offload media. So I actually have the media being stored on a DigitalOcean space on assets.blog.Beau Simensen bucket. So if you look at one of these articles, if we go to this one, and this image here is uploaded to WordPress, or uploaded through WordPress, but the URL, it looks like a WordPress URL-ish if you know WordPress very well. But I wanted to try to make sure there was as little WordPress leaking as possible. And one of the issues that I really wanted to solve was making sure that this URL wasn't actually something like this, because this would totally have just defeated the purpose of what I was doing. Like if this was the URL of my image, I wouldn't have been very happy with that. So I had to solve a bunch of things on the WordPress side to make sure that I was happy with the content it was generating, and then I was able to easily bring it in. So yeah, I'm not doing anything fancy with the information that's actually brought in from WordPress. This is all more or less, fully WordPress rendered. The only weird bit is it is using in some cases, it's using the WordPress classes for things. So here, I think I'm not doing that only because it is just the featured image. So I had more control over what goes on. But if I go into one of the other posts, let's do this one again. And if I add an image this time, I'll even add the same image. So default. Media library. So I'll use this image and save draft. Go back to this one, and now if we look at this, you can see that the difference is that there's text above. There is no image right under the title. So yeah, here it is using exactly all of the WordPress stuff. Using figure, block image, size large, image. But I did get to leverage all of like the source set stuff. I wish I could trim some of these classes that I don't need, like WP image 46. Like that would be great not to expose, but I'm just going to let it go for now. So Oliver says that they've done some Drupal backend to Vue.js frontend with JSON API, but haven't thought of trying doing it with Symfony or Laravel with webhooks. Yeah, so the webhook part is just my little pet favorite thing to make things happen as quickly as possible. So like some of the other streams that I've done recently with like my Pipedrive integration stuff. I finally finished the Feedbin API part. So I'm actually gonna pull Feedbin up, our reader, and just so we can see what this is actually going to do. So I'm going to say, Angular 11, but I don't. In your backend developer node, if there's something that would actually be good for me to bring in. Technical architect. Let's do this one. Platform, okay, so I'm going to star this. And so two things happen now. It's now starred, which is great, but it also is marked as red, which means if I go somewhere else and come back up here again, that one's gone. So if we change to starred view, we can see that it's just this one entry, and hopefully at 8:10 it's going to get pulled off of here. And so I have a job running every 10 minutes to check for any starred items in feedbin, and then feedbin will or the process will then do some information lookups on Pipedrive with to the effect of adding a new lead for this specific job post. It's going to automatically add it to the organization of Indeed.com, which was kind of a hack to try and get that to work, so that once I get things out of here, it moves into the sales pipeline. So here we can see there's no more start items. So after it adds the lead in Pipedrive, it then comes back to feedbin and unstars it. So I don't like this workflow as much because feedbin didn't have webhooks, and I could probably ramp up my checking of starred items to once a minute, but I think probably 5 minutes is decent. So now if I go back here to Pipedrive and reload this, what I can do is see Technical Architect has now shown up here 38 seconds ago. I can click on it, and so Technical Architect, I can read it on Indeed, so I can link right there. I can read it on Feedbin, so both of these links work. So here's the Technical Architect job post, so if I want to read the whole thing. Caesar says, is there a way on GitHub to find open source projects? Not necessarily. I think what your best bet would be, I mean, most of the public things on GitHub are open source, I guess is the way I should say that. I think that you'd be more like, you'd probably have a better chance looking specifically for projects you're actually interested in. So stuff that you've used, like if you're using Vue or you're using React or you're using a specific library that you're like, oh, I looked up this thing to try and do this one specific part of this application when I was building it. Go look up that specific library, because all of those libraries are going to be probably on GitHub or Bitbucket or something, and maybe they need help, maybe they want something else. So it doesn't have to be something fancy, it doesn't have to be like a specific open source project, it can be little ones as well. As soon as I work through this thought, I'll give you an example of that. So here's the Indeed post. So if I want to look at this specifically on Indeed, I can. If I want to do more things, so apply on company sites. So this is something I'll do sometimes. Let's click through to Social 27 because I'm actually more interested in the actual job site than sometimes the Indeed post. The other thing was I can actually look to see this post in Feedbin. This can be useful if I accidentally star things or unstar things. This lets me go back into it. I'm actually going to follow through on this. So we'll do Social 27. All right, so it is just Social 27. And so I'm going to change now. So the organization was Indeed. I'm going to change this organization to Social 27. Add them as a new organization. And then I'm going to convert this to a deal. Actually, no, I'm not going to convert it to a deal yet. But what I am going to do is I'm going to schedule an activity. So I have a couple of activities here. So I'm going to apply to. So I'm going to schedule applying to this job for tomorrow. So this creates an activity. I set up a workflow to change it from apply to the title of the actual lead itself. And now if I look at Fantastical, I should be able to see right away, I'm going to cancel that it actually should have already added this. So apply to, what was it? Apply to Technical Architect. So, yeah, here it is. So this is the one that we just created. So, and if I click on this, I can go back to the specific lead in the lead inbox. So like this stuff is all like super fast. If I go in and change this to apply to or apply for and change this with the webhooks, this should update on its own really quickly. At least that's the plan. Of course, it's not going to when I'm watching it. Oh, okay. Go see if it even made it to Todoist, because maybe it didn't. Yeah, it didn't even make it this far, so something must not be working on that then. But yeah, that I've been trying to do more with the actual webhooks, just because I do like that workflow better. But yeah, I don't actually know why that didn't make its way there. It should have actually updated the title. Anyway, it gives you an idea of the kind of things that I'm trying to do with the webhooks, and making sure that anytime something happens somewhere else, I'd rather just send it right back instead of trying to do something a little more detailed. Of course, now I'm actually really worried. Not worried, but I'm really curious why that didn't work. So this is the other thing that I've been doing a lot of lately, is making sure that I log things. So I can actually should be able to see the Pipedrive webhook events. I can see that it was updated to meta current. So we can see subject is where, yeah, so subject was apply for social 27 technical architect, but it didn't actually make a change. So Pipedrive web events. Oh, so it looks like it probably failed somewhere on publishing to Todoist for some reason, and it's not clear why that would have failed. But fortunately, it didn't fail enough to actually cause an actual error, so that's good. Let's see, is this him? All right. Well, I'm getting way down in the weeds on this one, so I think I should probably stop. Thanks, Oliver, for asking about webhooks, sending me down that path. Yeah. Okay. Anyway, so let's see here. All right, so we've talked about this a bit. I think I would like to see if I can look more at the distinctions between the databases, for the database between posts and pages. Is the, here we go. Okay. All right. Before I forget, I'm gonna, before I expose this, I turn that off for y'all. The all right, there we are. Okay, so select slug. Oh, interesting. Just assumed that would be the name. My brain is stopping on how to show table text. I think I have show tables. No. Tables. Yeah, clearly that's not right. Alright, so what's describe? Oh, show tables, like, yeah, I was looking for describe. I think that, I think SQLite does show, maybe, or something, and so my brain was on the wrong thing. So is it post slug? Or is slug in a completely different, probably in a completely different table? I bet this might actually be in this article, or at least it would be in maybe Corcel. It would tell us where it is. Page slug first. It's doing a search. Oh, post name. Really? All right. Okay. Guess there it is. And so let's do. I want to get sample page. That's a page. And also let's post. Post name? Oh. Okay, so sample page, post excerpt, publish, close. So post type of page. So I guess that must be all it is. Interesting. Status, publish. I wonder if that means that either what if that means the webhook plugin only does posts? Triggered, available data, settings, trigger front end only. Oh. Select only the post types you want. If none is selected, all are triggered. Should be triggering them all then. And same thing for states. I wonder if there's something. I wonder if I have some failed tasks for that webhook. No. Because it seems like it should have worked then. So let me double check the code to see if there's something that looks specifically for post type. No. So that is something that I'll have to change here. So I'm going to need to put post type or type. So we'll add that to press post ID. Wonder if it was. It could be that it was the way that I saved it. Maybe I just go to wonder. Oh, I'm going to publish it again. See if that makes it show up. Double check that. Failed jobs. So no failed jobs. Request posts. Huh. So it definitely seems like it's not sending them. Sure. The only thing I can think of is something weird in post ID. There we go. So if the status, something weird. Oh, maybe there's no author. But I wonder if that could be it. So let's do parent page. Maybe they don't even have authors. Because if my code's assuming there's an author, because there's always an author for if there's always an author for posts, but never an author for pages, that would make sense why. I mean, that would be one difference. Let's just try this out here. Nice. I'm finally getting the hang of not exposing credentials. Because that project opened up directly to them. Let's see here. So, WordPress API. All right, so yeah, so this is probably where there might be an issue. If resolve author coming back, like if there aren't any, basically, that would be bad. So let's do if authors and an empty array. But even beyond that, this I may not even be making it that far, because if we are requesting authors, here, maybe we can't do that. Possibly the same thing for WP featured. So I'm gonna let this go for now. So let's do support for pages. I do have a command line tool that I wrote also. Try that real quick. Because I might be able to see if I can find a way to see this locally. Ooh. Makes sense. All dependencies. I just updated my machine recently, so it's still moving everything across. So if these are issues, it may not even be recording correctly. And then if that's true, then I can imagine this is actually potentially an issue. Trying to get this when it doesn't actually exist. do this. So at least sends in an empty array. And so maybe if count here, we only want to do these things if it actually resolved anything. So if it didn't actually have an author, don't do anything. Actually, this goes up there. Well, and then let's look for WordPress posts. WordPress author is already nullable, so that should be fine. That was the thing I wasn't sure about, if WordPress author was going to be a problem not to have one, but it doesn't look like it will be. Getting installed still. So if we look at console commands, I have async all posts, so we'll do WordPress get all posts. Generate list posts URL. I think this is, yeah, so it's asking for post. Seems like if the pages aren't showing up there, then the pages aren't showing up in this output. If the pages aren't showing up in this list, then I need to double check and see why pages wouldn't be showing up here. So if there's a different endpoint for pages, it makes me feel like there's something weird going on with the post type. It seems like everything else looks like it should be working as expected. Maybe I can open that up now while we're waiting here. So endpoint reference, pages does have a different, that seems weird to me. List pages. Type of post for the object. So we should have posts then as well. Right now we should be able to run our command. Do WordPress sync posts. I've properly broken something. Type string null given.
Feel so free, just believe we can come alive.
Okay, so 5 posts. So what I'm going to do now is change this to generate list post URL and do. I wonder if even the generate retrieve post URL needs to be updated as well. Copy all of this. All right, so we're gonna get generate list pages URL for raw pages for each raw page, and then we're gonna try and use process raw post again. We'll see if this works. Okay. My guess is we're gonna get maybe this far. Oh, actually this might actually work because we're not actually doing an individual endpoint. We're not getting a specific page. We're getting them in bulk. Nothing else, it'll be a good way for me to see. Yeah. Okay, so this is a problem because term is missing. So, oh, okay. So this is probably another case of there are no terms, so you probably can't put terms on pages. This is a classic example of why it probably doesn't make sense to try to shoehorn two concepts into the same underlying model. If anyone was ever looking for that. So that worked. The problem now is that get post is going to get a specific post. So let's see if I can do get post on one of these. Because I should be able to go to here and see that information. Sample page, awesome. So it makes sense that it's there. Cool. So I can actually bring it in. So do pages go to? So it actually did everything it was supposed to. So now the thing that I need to do is check the ID. So this is post ID 2. Oliver Davies says that they're gonna go get some sleep. Yeah, hopefully we can connect again next week and you're able to take a look. And good luck, or good job with your talk tonight. I hope it went well. Sleep well. All right, so now we are going to do sync post 2 and see if this crashes. I guess it is. Yep. So embed 404, because this is actually a page and not a post. Ridiculous to me, but whatever. So let's do get page to be identical. The only difference is going to be it's going to be create page URL. This is going to be I think that should work, but that also means I have to create a new console command. Sync post. Oh, no. It was really not my favorite, but I think we'll let it go. Cool. Seems like it worked. So let's double check here. We'll do sample page. Let's go back and edit it. Okay. Add some stuff, update it. Good. Nice. Well, thank you for joining, Caesar. Sleep well. 6 a.m. is super late, and thanks for hanging out that long. Take care. Best of luck to you on your job hunting and all of that. Cool. So this brought in everything like we'd expected. So let's see. I'm actually going to post this information now because I think this should give us enough detail to at least get the existing site essentially like finishing this. So way more complicated than it needed. Okay, so we do know that the stuff that we have actually will support pages now. Had some issues lately getting too excited pushing code and then finding out that Psalm was going to throw a fit or PHP CS, so I'm going to run these first before I commit it. But oh, you know what? Actually, so if we look at the command handlers from earlier, let's go to change post or post changed. So post ID, I think we need type as well. So remember, did we figure out if that was of the raw post, because if the raw post has I think that's what the payload looks like, so I'm looking for type. Okay. Let's do post change. We'll pass in type, assuming that's do the same thing for delete as well. And then inside of each of these, I actually set type. And then if I'm going to guess that any of the custom post types are still going to be posts. It's just the page that's going to be a problem. It's only going to be if the type is page that we do anything different. So I'm hoping that's going to be the case. So if I go back to delete, which means we have, oh, this doesn't matter. Awesome. So because on our side, we don't care what's going on. Like we don't care if it's a post or a page, then we are going to not have to do any checking actually. So it's, well, we put it in place, so let's leave it in place, but we're not actually going to do anything with type because we don't need to worry about it on our side. Run Psalm again. So I think if I can successfully get the pages published from the blog back to the actual website, I think we'll probably be done for the night. And even if we can't get that working, I think I'll probably have to be done pretty soon. But I think that what we can do with that is sort of call that closing out that one feature that we needed to have. That way, everything in the one site will have all of the features that we need. And it'll be easier to sort of extract that out into, I don't know if we're actually going to do a package or not. Might be kind of nice as a package, but it might be overkill for what we're trying to really accomplish. So, app stuff. Double check everything here. So we're adding a new sync page command that explicitly syncs a page. We're including the type that's passed in with the request and hoping that just works. That's the part where I'm not really sure what's going to be going on there because request might not have the information we think it does. This is the part that should make it work. to get a page versus get a post. Otherwise, they work the same exact way. So that's the main thing that we actually changed here. And then adding these URLs. This would be a way to only ask for the embeds that are supported, because GetPage has a separate bootstrap for this, so we should be able to change that if we need to. We changed get all posts to a separate query for list pages. This is sort of a debug tool anyway, because it doesn't do anything with pagination or anything. It's mostly just meant to bootstrap dev space to bring in all the information it needs. So I'm fine with leaving like the debug stuff in here. It's a quick way to get through that. This stuff was a little more complicated and a little more nervous about it, but this was definitely going to cause a problem, I think. So I'm glad we added this. And then the author stuff, I think will be fine as well. Okay, so I'm gonna go ahead and try and push this and see. Oh, great. I don't even know what this possibly could have been. Oh. All right, so dash. Very cool. Alright, so I'm going to see if that actually gets published up there. The other thing that we need to worry about, not worry about, but the published status of these could potentially cause an issue. So I need to bring my environment back up again. Okay, I guess that's not working for some reason. We'll just run with this. Pull down everything again. I guess I've actually already answered my question, because this is actually using the slug right here. So I'm guessing if these things actually publish correctly, I'm not doing a whole lot to make sure that it's not colliding with existing routes on these sites. But I think it runs last, so it shouldn't actually cause any issues there. But that's kind of a famous last word sort of situation, so I want to make sure that it's okay before I just say, yeah, I'm done for the day. So now I did get a post. So I'm getting some exceptions here earlier tonight. Oh, actually that's a... That's interesting. This is, I could swear that this was already handled correctly. So this is a problem because the failed jobs list had a new field added, and I could swear that that migration was in there, but maybe not. Driver database. Here it is. Oh, guess I need to add a new configuration. Let me double check. Great failed jobs table. Didn't think my project was old enough that it wouldn't have this in it. Guess it is. Table drop column to ID. Down. Okay. Double check one more thing. Failed driver configuration. I feel like that must already be set if, yeah. I don't know why this got set to a default if the migration that was created wasn't there. Oh well. It is what it is. Alright, so we're going to push that. In the meantime, I have seen that the deployment completed, so try so there's nothing here yet for any of our pages. So I'm going to update this page. see if this causes another failed job or if we now have a page. Oh, bother. I'm guessing we must have another error somewhere in here. Type string null given. Okay, so this is that is on our controllers. Post. I don't really know the best way to figure out, like, we could set up ngrok and all of that nonsense just to test this out. Sometimes if it's, a lot of my projects are unimportant enough that I can just wing it like this, but I don't necessarily think it's the best plan. So please don't judge me. We'll do add. Push this out next. So we're officially after 9 o'clock now, so might need all this before we can really get a chance to test it out, but I feel pretty confident that we're going in the right direction. Definitely have this piece here we need to figure out, and if we can figure that out, I think we'll probably be good. So, absolute worst case scenario, if for some reason this payload doesn't actually include the information that we needed to know what type of post, we could always do something really ridiculous like try this. And if not, then do this. So basically try to see if it's a post, or well, we probably do it that way actually, because that's probably more likely. Try to do it as a post, and if that gives us an error, then try to do it as a page and hope for the best. But I'm hoping that that actually isn't something we have to do, because that would be pretty silly. And where we're at now, I think we're in good shape for running with it. Let's see here. So I think we are in the process of the first deployment, so that we should be able to have handle pages. So active, the new one is where maybe it doesn't show me incoming deployments, but I do know there's a new deployment starting. At least then I should be able to get some logs out for failed jobs. But we're not even getting to that point, so I think this is where we're probably having issues now. One of the things I've been trying to figure out is how to better logging with Vapor. Because it doesn't seem to be giving us a lot of info. It doesn't seem to be giving a lot of info. The next deployment's in 2. One active. Still waiting on one to be active. So, here we go. So it's deploying add UUID to failed jobs. Hoping we're not actually going to have some sort of weird race condition thing. The one thing with I'm using GitHub Actions. It's nice that they are sort of asynchronous, but I also don't know what that means. So these were only 2 minutes apart, so this is actually deploying to Vapor. I feel like this one is already deploying to Vapor, so yeah, that's good times right there. So which one's going to win? I don't know. Use post type. Okay, so the other one technically has finished. So UUID, yeah. So this one's finished deploying. So in theory, we should now have UUID in our failed jobs table. And this one is still probably in the process of doing something, hopefully. Yeah, so UUID is active. Post types instead of type is still deploying, so I think it's pretty close. Notifying Vapor. So this is still well into it. Okay, cool. So it deployed successfully. Let's see here. So let's go to our page again. And let's see how much fun this is. So we'll look at the logs for HTTP logs. That'll be where we'll see the error first, if we're going to see an error. Right here. Oh, we did. Okay, so 9/11. Okay. All right. So I guess what I'm going to have to do is fire up the. I'm going to have to fire up ngrok to see what that payload actually looks like, because I don't want to go through this loop again. So again, the thing that we're getting hung up on here, as far as I can tell, is oh, delete post. Interesting. So change post was a problem. Still a problem here, James. Argument number 2 type must be of type string. So if we look at change post, change post construct. Okay, so that's up here. So this needs to be type string. And what's actually happening is getting null. So that's what we're getting here is null. So anyway, this is the piece that we're missing, is we need to figure out what this payload looks like so that we can query the right values. That's going to require setting up ngrok, and I don't want to do that right now because it's a little too late. So thank you all for joining tonight. I'll probably pick this up again on Thursday because this will probably be all related to a virtual talk I'll be giving for Madison's WordPress meetup. to show integrating WordPress with Laravel using the WordPress API to do headless WordPress. So thank you for joining tonight. Looking forward to hearing from you again later, and have a good night. Thanks. Bye.